live in enlightened times where we can travel around the world quite freely, or so we think. We can get quite upset with travel authorisations that are brought in. But let's remember that passports were only introduced after the First World War, when Britain and America went into Europe to try and sort things out. Passports then, after that time, around 1921 in the UK, passports for international travel were introduced. There's been many times over the last few thousand years when there's been other types of taxes introduced that inhibited the cost of travel, the cost of a passport. And within Britain, we've recently had good news that a toll tax on crossing the River Severn between England and Wales is to be removed. Now, the River Severn is the third biggest estuary, tidal estuary in the world, and it's long been a barrier for thousands of years, and there's been a toll to pay. A toll is a type of tax, whether it's paid to the government or the ship owner. But since the 1960s, the people of England passing into Wales have had to pay a toll to cross the Severn bridges. Now, there's quite a bit of history here, because if you look at Britain 2,000 years ago, it was set up, administered and controlled under rules from Europe of the Romans. The Romans left, and we had a mini Brexit, and the Britons were left to fend for themselves in their green and pleasant lands. However, things didn't stay quite that way, because the Angles and Saxons came over from the German states and occupied the south of England and created the kingdoms of Wessex, Sussex, Essex and Middlesex, and peace reigned there. The native British were forced back into one part of Britain, which forgive my pronunciation here, which became known in the British language as Cymru. Wales is what the common name is known as. The Britons called it Cymru, land of the brothers, and they welcome expelled Britons from around the world that were taken over. Their homes, their lands, their farms were taken over by the Angles and the Saxons. The Angles and Saxons renamed this part of Britain. They called it Wales, which in Anglo-Saxon means enemy. So there's quite a bit of history there that goes on, and the King of Wessex, King Alfred, is widely recognised as the first king of all England, of the all English people. And he reigned. There were 4 kingdoms, and he reigned, but nearly lost his crown. Wessex was the last remaining kingdom, Anglo-Saxon kingdom in England, because there was the Norway option came to the UK, and the Norway option in the Middle Ages was the Vikings, which is a bit shocking. So Dutch, Danish and Norwegian Vikings invading in Northumberland, Cumbria, East Anglia, Lincolnshire and down into the East Midlands, took over large swathes of England in the Middle Ages, and got to the stage where Alfred almost lost his crown, and he was exiled into the Somerset marshes on the Severn estuary, and the borderland between England and Wales, where he famously, burnt the cakes that he was sent to look after. Somehow, stuck in that boggy, swampy land, and his knees up to the knees in mud, and with seemingly no hope of recovering his country, his crown and his leadership. A bit like Theresa May and Brexit, he had Europeans in front of him in the form of the Danish Vikings and the Dutch and the Norwegians, and behind him he had the British people, who weren't at the Wales, weren't particularly his friends either. So he was quite isolated and very alone, and a bit stuck in the swamp. In these days when there doesn't seem any way of resolving the Brexit impasse, when the British government seems very isolated from everybody in Europe, being attacked in Europe, attacked in Britain, attacked by the native British and the Scots and the Irish, it is quite alone. So we're looking now maybe for a new King Alfred, a new Theresa May, or a new leader to come forward and find a way to inspire a nation to pull together and integrate the European options to one that will work for us. So let's think about that. The tolls on the bridge have been abandoned. This is good news. So taxes have gone down. We've got a new travel authorization tax for travelling to Europe. We've got one already for travelling to America. We've got a congestion charge to travel in London. So now the British can flee to the land of their brothers and leave England and go to Wales and maybe get some sanctuary without the taxation after all these years. I am well aware that is a bit of history, but there was a bit of irony there with the current situation. Things are bad, but things will change with Brexit. For family and business living and working abroad, investing overseas, there is always a way forward, and product partnership, we're determined to be clear with expats about what their options are. We only know what we know, and we know if there's no deal, how we can deal with the situation. Things can change all the time, and if you keep watching our website, go along to our website and download our guide to EU Brexit for expats. We can give you some insights and know-how on how to move forward with your planning for the next year. It's a little over 100 days to Brexit now, and we need to start planning to move our lives forward and not wait for other people to make their decisions. There's always a way forward, and let's find that together. Sam Allgill at productpartnership.com. Speak to you next time.